When Fredward Neil Thompson was born, his parents were too poor to support him, so they abandoned him in a foster home. But he was soon adopted by a new family, the Parrish, a couple with a 9-year-old daughter. The father worked as a butcher, and little Sarah also brought in some money as a seamstress. The mother, however, was addicted to pills and alcohol, who suffered attacks of anger in which she threatened her family with a knife. When the little one came to the family, he became the new target of her wrath. She beat him every time he spilled tea or woke up late, or every time he cried or raised his voice. His father, fearful of his wife, did nothing to defend him. He soon had to help out in the family business. He immediately realized that raw meat was repulsive to him. The smell, the feel of blood and guts, he couldn't bear it. But every time he escaped from the carnage, his mother beat him up and berated him for his weakness. The only one who came to comfort him was his stepsister, Sarah. She cared so much for him, and he was so smart and beautiful that Freddy began to feel something else. He fell in love with her, although he never dared to confess it. On the other hand, his mother began to be absent from home, spending whole days away, and when she returned, she would lock herself in her bedroom, constantly muttering something about a debt and the compensation that had to be paid, but she never said anything to her family. One day, Freddy came home and found it empty. He saw light in the carnage, so he went there fearful. Upon entering, he was frozen to see a large man with a mask, knives in his hands, and a bloody body. "Oh, you must be the son. Come with me." He took him by the arm and dragged him to the meat warehouse, the place he most feared. He placed it in front of a steaming pot, filled with a thick red liquid. "If you want to get out of here alive, you'll have to eat it." He grabbed his head and plunged it into the liquid. The smell was repulsive to him, but somehow he began to like the taste. He began to eat nonstop, even though his stomach ached and he felt heavy. Suddenly, fingers and eyes floated out of the red liquid. "Wow, you hate your family so much and you ate it." He looked around and saw blood spatters all over the walls. They had been killed right here. "Your mother owed us a debt, and she put you in payment." Freddy started screaming and whimpering and collapsed on the ground. The man left him there, while the young man banged his head against the wall, as if he wanted to wake up from a nightmare. Finally, he ended up losing consciousness, exhausted. He woke up days later in a clinic. Nobody explained to him about what had happened, and he was little by little burying it in his memory. When he recovered, a new family arrived to take him away and give him a new home. They were an endearing and loving couple who cared to give him everything he needed, especially a lot of affection. It was a novelty for Freddy. He finally felt accepted. Time passed, but he was never able to forget that feeling when he ate human flesh for the first time. The meat of the animals did not satisfy him, and he began to make small homicidal escapades in search of victims, usually defenseless children. He was afraid of breaking his new family balance, but the hunger was more powerful than his will. One day his father came home, and he found his wife on the ground. Her limbs were eaten, her entrails out, and she had almost no face. Beside her was Freddy kneeling, with his clothes covered in blood. He got up and hugged his father. "I love you, Papa." The man whispered, "You're not my son. We were right to leave you the first time, and we never should have come back for you." Freddy was shocked. Those who had taken him in fondly, whom he had attacked, were actually his biological parents. "Don't worry, Dad. I still love you." And then he bit his neck slowly, letting blood gush out. His father didn't resist, and Freddy finished the task of eating his neck, his belly, and his face. When he finished, he felt a deep regret. Everyone he had loved in his life, his stepsister Sarah, his biological parents, they were no longer. He had eaten them, as if he wanted to carry them inside forever. Suddenly, he began to feel nauseous and began to expel some remains of bodies. He felt lonely and desperate. He began to wander the streets and inadvertently returned to the clinic where he had been. Maybe that was his place, locked in a room, separated from the rest. He passed through the maternity area and noticed one woman among all of them. Her eyes were familiar. When he got closer, he recognized her and called her by name. There was no doubt, it was his stepsister Sarah, the one who had supported him so much, with whom he had been so in love. He had finally gotten back someone he cared about, someone with whom to share his life. But when he looked down at her curved belly, a mixture of feelings washed over him. Anger, sadness, despair. The woman he loved was expecting a child from someone else. Freddy hugged her and began to kiss her compulsively. "I love you, Sarah." She tried to get away, but it was impossible. "I love you, and I'll carry you with me forever." Suddenly, the kisses turned into ravenous bites, and Freddy began to devour her lips and cheeks. She tried to scream, but her voice soon drowned out and she fell to the ground. The people around them panicked, but no one dared to approach. Freddy continued to devour Sarah's body and guts. Suddenly, he heard a child cry, and he held the newborn in his arms, soaked in blood. "Don't worry, Sarah and I will take care of you. All of us. Sarah, my parents, they're all in me." Freddy looked at the puzzled people around him. "I'm not crazy. I'm just hungry." If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you on the next episode.